What's going on? What's 2021 holding for you?
Hey, good morning, Rish. Well, I think it's much of the same as we go into this year. Equity markets and risk assets ended last year in positive mood. Clearly, we've now got through some of the uncertainties that plagued us towards the end of the year, such as U.S. fiscal stimulus and Brexit. And I think that sets up a cleaner slate for the next few weeks. That said, we're a little bit cautious because markets are very skewed towards one direction. Consensus seems to be also one directional, i.e. short dollars and higher risk assets, which makes us a little bit more cautious. At the same time, you've got some political risks in the U.S. with the Georgia Senate runoffs and obviously the confirmation of Biden this week as well. So it's not without obstacles, but we do think the risk rally continues in the next few weeks and months.
The story, the bet seems to be pretty much widespread that the dollar goes down this year. It's almost a consensual bet. The thing is, so many people predicting it often goes in the other direction.
Yeah, that's right. It's definitely a consensus bet, and we've already seen positioning move quite significantly to move short dollars. And that's what worries us. I think there is potential for some sort of a bounce in the dollar, given where positioning and sentiment is now. That said, the negative pressure on the dollar, the factors pushing for that are still pretty strong. And, the extremely low U.S. yields, that we will see continued widening in U.S. deficits, perhaps some underperformance in terms of the U.S. overall. We could weigh on the dollar, but again, it worries us that positioning is so skewed.
Mitul, just a line to Mark here. Suga saying that he'll be among the first to receive the vaccine. Of course, Suga is holding a press conference as we speak now. How closely are you watching the data that will be coming out this week, Mitul, the likes of the US ISM, FOMC? Does data play a big part in where the dollar and the market go from here?
Yes, it certainly does. We're going to be watching very closely. The U.S. numbers this week are pretty important, the ISM, and as you mentioned, the payrolls, and also just the Fed FOMC minutes. If anything, the fact that we are seeing an intensification of the virus in Europe and in the U.S. does highlight the risk to growth in the very near term, potentially even the next few months, before vaccines are more widely distributed and used. So that danger zone, I think, will potentially weigh on markets. Again, perversely, that could be supportive for the dollar, because if we do see risk aversion pick up because of worries about growth, the dollar could benefit from that in the near term. But overall, as I mentioned, we do see a weaker dollar. We do see risk assets performing well. But I think, again, I'm always wary of the trend in the first couple of weeks of the year. Again, we've started off with a very, very soft dollar today, and that may continue in the near term. But again, just watch out for any sort of short covering squeeze.
Well, that's right. No risk aversion. Taking a look at the ringgit right now, it is rising past 4 to the dollar for the first time since June 2018. What does it mean for risk assets? What does it mean for EM currencies in Asia, the likes of the ringgit, the likes of the Thai baht?
Well, it's, again, a positive view on EM currencies. And, like many others, again, probably from a consensus perspective, but it is a case where most investors are positive on EM assets in the next few months. And we would concur with that. We think Asia really stands apart from the rest. Asia is benefiting from improved external positions, being first in and first out, in particular China, from the COVID pandemic. At the same time, Asia will benefit from renewed investment inflows. So it all bodes well for the region. But that said, we have had already very strong rallies. As you mentioned, we're seeing a jump in Asian currencies this morning. And I think that will continue. I don't see any reversal of that. But perhaps, again, it may be more slower in terms of the pace of appreciation in the months ahead. And one risk factor for against Asian currencies is the increased interventions from Asian central banks, who are more worried about appreciation pressures continuing to remain fairly significant. So we could see more dollar buying, even with the U.S. Treasury and U.S. administration keeping an eye on this sort of intervention.
Do you see Bitcoin as a hedge against a weak dollar, Mitul? It's gone from, what, $100 to $34,000?
Yeah, I mean, Bitcoin obviously benefiting from this massive liquidity that we're seeing globally. And to me, it's just a liquidity story here rather than a fundamental one. And I think this is why we've seen this dichotomy between risk assets and the economic growth picture for several months now. And if anything, that will widen and it will benefit those assets that will just see this liquidity infusion, and Bitcoin has benefited the likes of gold, plus, of course, global equity markets and EM in particular are going to be key beneficiaries in that environment where liquidity is just so ample and continues to be that way and will continue to be that way in the months ahead.